Bring up an individual today. He's been around with Lifestyles for a while. We were all sitting in the exact same seats that y'all have been sitting in. We were all just as skeptical as maybe y'all have been. But it's good to bring up people who are doing what you want to be doing, and Jerry is definitely one of those people. So come on up, Jerry.
Here.
There you go.
Yep, that works.
All right.
Howdy. Any Aggies? Yeah, I'm not an Aggie. Okay, let's see. You got the clicker, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so, thank you. That's likely to happen. So we've been around a while. We're kind of the exception. Most of the folks that are leads in Lifestyles did not start in real estate. So my wife and I both have a pretty extensive background in real estate. We spent a lot of years of our career making a lot of money for other people. And when the opportunity came up to join Lifestyles, we kind of looked at it and looked at each other and said, we're going to burn our ships at the shore, walk away from everything else that we've done, and start really investing in ourselves. Okay, next slide. Why did we join? So my daughter was going off to Texas A&M. I'm an Aggie by tuition. So she was going off to Texas A&M, and I was telling a guy that was a member that, hey, I'm going to buy a house for her to live in. I'm not going to put her in a dorm and, flush money down the toilet and all that jazz. He said, oh, you need to check out Lifestyles Unlimited. Sounds like a swingers club. What are you talking about? He says, oh, no. I'm in it. My cousin's in it. And I said, okay, well, yeah, thank you. And he said, well, they're for real because they have a radio show. I said, then absolutely not am I going to, join some place that has a radio show. I go home, tell my wife what this crazy friend of mine had said. She said, oh, they're in our building. She worked for the real estate investment trust that owned the building that Lifestyles was leasing at the time, and their headquarters was in that building. They've been there for 10 years. I've been wondering what they've been doing, and I've heard some of their podcasts. Let's go check it out.
I don't think we had podcasts back then, did we?
Radio show, maybe?
There we go.
Okay, radio show. Yeah, whatever it was. And so we said, all right, fine, we'll go. We checked it out and came to a case study, one of these, after we went to the 2-day. And there was a British guy. Remember Lindsay and Ian?
Oh, yeah.
And he was up here, and I didn't realize that they did multifamily, even though I was at the 2-day, because I was on the phone in the hall most of the time because I didn't think I could learn anything from Dell. And so I told my wife, I said, they're doing multifamily. Yeah, that's what they said. So I went up, I talked to Ian. I've got some British real estate credentials, and he was trying to get them. So we kind of hit it off, and we talked and decided, okay, this is for real, and we're gonna do it.
But why did you join Lifestyles? Have we got to that question yet?
Why did we join Lifestyles? Isn't it obvious?
That was the question on the slide, dude. You're talking. Why did you join Lifestyles? Get to the point.
All right, we joined Lifestyles because there isn't anything else out there like this at the end of the day. And we'll talk more about that later. Will you change the slide? Okay, we're talking about a landmark, a Class A property. Yeah, who's new? Who's not been through the 2-day? Okay, so we got a fair number of disbelievers out there. Good. All right, the rest of you have, so this will be kind of familiar. 290 units built in 1926. The big building is a former power plant in New Braunfels. Those of you that have been to New Braunfels may have heard of the LCRA building. We took those letters down, much to the chagrin of most of the folks that live in New Braunfels, and we put up our name, the Landmark, and now it's called the Landmark. We bought it in November of 2015. We paid a whopping $144,000 a unit. I think it was the highest price paid for any property at that time. We thought we would we could deliver maybe a 7% return, and people were saying, oh, that's too low. Nobody's going to invest with you at a 7% return. But we pulled $12 million out of pocket. It was us and 104 of our closest friends. Our initial financing was a 10-year loan, CMBS. It's called a mortgage conduit loan, and they will talk about that when? This weekend, right? So you'll understand what that is. And we had a rehab budget of about $2.4 million. Next slide.
All right, so if you don't have 144 million, is that what you said? No, 41 million. If you don't have 41 million to invest in an apartment community, if you have 50,000, you call up Jerry and you go, can I invest in your next property? And there you go. You're an investor in multifamily. We call those people passives, passive investors, which mean they let Jerry do all the work, and I think you collect money, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
You collected a little bit of money coming out of here, so very good. So that's what that means. So let's move forward.
So that's how we put the deal together. At the time, well, let's see. I think that is our current income. So we are collecting $6,407,000 a year.
That sound like a lot?
It's just math.
It's just a couple commas. That's all it is.
The expenses, $2,573,000. That leaves the NOI, net operating income, revenue after expenses, at $3,834,000. That creates a monthly cash flow after you pay your loan, right, of $96,000, and our cash-on-cash return is 7.5% average over the holding period. So far, we've distributed $20.2 million, which is 143% return on their initial capital.
Jerry, how did you do that?
We worked our ass off.
Very good. Okay, so he's joking. He's not really joking. He says he worked his ass off. So I want you guys to understand that as lead investors, okay, as if you own your own property, that is a job, okay? You are working your asses off to perform, to basically give either yourself back money and build your wealth, or give your investors, your passives back money. To date, he's contributed over 143%, which means if you gave him $50,000, how much did you get back? Yeah.
And you still own the property.
And you still own the property, and you're still cash flowing, right? You're still getting dividends every quarter. He is sending you a check for more and more and more, okay? Is that good?
And real quick, those of you that are investors in this deal, raise your hand. Look around. If you want to know what it's like to invest in a deal, talk to them. And by the way, we finished all our distributions for this quarter, so it's in your bank now. All right. The estimated value, if you used a 5% cap rate, and for those of you that don't know what that means, they'll explain it over the weekend, is roughly $76.7 million, or $264,000 a unit.
Again, you bought it for $41 million, correct?
And we bought it for about
almost
$41
worth
million.
double. And again, this weekend, he will go over the way we value apartment communities. Randa, I got that right. Apartment communities. Yes, I've been working on that. So the way we value, which Chris will go over this weekend, is on net operating income. If your net operating income goes up, the value of your property goes up. If the value in NOI goes down, the value of your property goes down. It's pretty much that simple. And again, Chris will go over that this weekend. All right, so very good.
Okay, so a little before and after. This is the club room. And in the club room, that used to be where the power turbines were. And where you see the rug on the left was covering a really ratty-looking piece of concrete that was covering the hole in the ground where one of the turbines sat. Well, we didn't like that. We didn't like the rug, and we changed it. Next. And we made a dance floor out of it. So instead of a ratty-looking rug, we now have a dance floor, and we created a venue opportunity. So now we rent out the clubroom space. Again, this wasn't revenue that they were getting at the time. We rent out the clubroom space for weddings, for other events, anniversaries, you name it. Next slide.
Quick test. If I have additional revenue, what does that do to my NOI? And what does that do to the value of your property?
Very good. Y'all are going to do great this weekend.
Okay, so we looked around, and the property was actually in pretty good shape, but we noticed it looked a little tired. So while we were working on the main building, we looked at the garden section. It's a combination of that tower, that old power plant, and the garden apartments that surround it. And if you look on the left, that's the original paint, kind of an adobe-looking thing. And we decided, you know what, I think we can make that better, and so we brightened it up. Next slide. So if you look at this on the left, at the very top, you can see the original letters, LCRA, which stands for Lower Colorado River Authority, right? Growing up as a kid, this property is right next to the Wurstfest Fairgrounds. So I always knew it. I knew how to get to Wurstfest when I saw the smokestacks of the LCRA building. Well, the LCRA didn't own it anymore. We did. And everybody knew it as the landmark, but they called it the LCRA building. So we took those letters off and added our letters, but because we knew it would create an uproar in the community, we took the letters down, reconditioned them, and hung them in that club room where you saw the star. So now it's a historical exhibit inside what is also a historic building. That building is on the National Register of Historic Places. Next slide. And that's what it looks like at night when we added the lights. So when Ukraine was invaded by Russia, we lit one stack yellow and one stack blue. It was on the front page of the San Antonio newspaper.
I think you call that marketing, right?
It worked.
Go through marketing. You go through marketing this weekend too, don't you? Amazing. All right.
Okay, here's some numbers. And normally, because we've held it for, gosh, I guess it's about 8 years now, I thought, let's look at the start and where we are today. So when we took over, the revenue was $4,659,000. Today, it's $6,406,000. The expenses.
You guys got millions, right? So we're not talking about a couple $100,000 or a couple $1,000 rent increases here. We're talking millions over this time period.
So the the rents or the expenses, they increased too. You know, you got some inflation, but look at the difference in the rate of increase. Revenue increased by about 50%. Expenses have increased by maybe, I don't know, 7%, roughly. And it has a direct effect on your net operating income. So the NOI that determines value went from $2,440,000 to $3,083,000. The mortgage back then when we took over was $1.5 million. Now it's $2,676,000.
Why did it go up?
Because we refinanced and pulled 80% of everybody's money out and gave it back to them.
Remember that big chunk of change that they gave back? It basically is called a refinance, okay? The property was performing so much better. Again, NOI went up, so the value of the property went up. We're allowed to get a new loan on it, okay? Would you get like a 70% loan? 65?
No, we got a 60.
60%
So we got
loan, okay.
15% interest only for 15-year loan, interest only for 15 years.
Sweet, okay. He'll go over that this weekend, but that's freaking incredible. I mean, I can say freaking. It's freaking incredible here, I'm telling you. All right, so he took out money, okay? That's what we call a tax-free event. They refinance, they have all this cash now in their coffers. What is he gonna do with it? He's going to send it out to investors. I think they'll keep back some of it to do some more renovations, if it needs a new paint job, something like that. But basically, there's still cash flowing today at a rate of about 10%. But again, that 10% is off your original investment. But what happened to your original investment? You already got it back, right? So that's kind of like an infinite rate of return. You're getting 10% off your original, but you've already gotten your original back. So that's just, again, just like the single family, the fourplex we had earlier, it's kind of an infinite rate of return, and they still own the asset.
So, Paul, all the distributions we've sent you, how much in taxes have you paid on them so far? zero.
Just a zero. This is what we call a tax-free event. And again, we'll go over that eventually. So
Cass loves the K1.
all right. So again, overall, that's about, what are you saying, like an 80% return?
Just on the refinancing alone, 80% return. Yep.
Is that exciting? Is that good?
So
That's impressive. Again, the gentleman that was up here earlier, if you had 15 years ago, dude, you could have invested in that. You could have had all your money. Come on.
So there are two different types of deals, and you'll get a download on this. A value add, which means it's in rough shape. You go in there, you do the major heavy lifting, and you get a big benefit out of it. And your risk is a little higher because you got a lot of work to do. There's also a yield play, which means this thing is rocking. It's doing just fine. It's a coupon clipper. Originally, when we put this deal together, we thought it would just be a yield play. We had no idea what we would be able to do with it and what we could do for our investors. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the difference between NOI and property value. So NOI in 2015 is $2,442,000. We had a value of $41,750,000. I was wrong. I was off by $750,000 on the price. Today, NOI is $3,833,000. Our value is $76,700,000. Our debt is $43 million. Look at that. Our debt is actually higher than our original purchase price. But we got 15-year financing interest only because we had added so much value to the property. So you subtract out the debt, you subtract out the original investment, because we still pay the investment back. That 80% wasn't getting their money back. That's just a return on their money. So we send back the original cumulative distributions to date get added back in, and that means the total cash and equity capture we've received so far is almost equal to the total purchase price of the property 8 years ago.
Is that good? Very nice. Okay, something I want to point out that I don't want you guys to get overly, like, there's no way I can do a $41 million deal. Yes, I get that. But again, just move the decimal, move the commas over. That's the power of multifamily. Even in single family, you're making like, I don't know, 80, 90% return. It might amount to tens of thousands. When you're talking about 80 or 90% in $1 million or 20 million or 40 million, that's where the true numbers really add up. Again, we teach you all how to do that. I mean, this was a little bit of outlier. Jerry had some experience in on. He's a very impressive job. But Chris will go over exactly how to. The mentors will help you on this. The ops consultants will help you as well if you need help. I mean, just ask. We're there. But don't get overwhelmed. Again, the magnitude, the value in multifamily is we're not dealing with tens of thousands. We're dealing with hundreds and millions of dollars when we start talking about that. Same process that you go through. It's just the commas in a different place is all. Okay? Very good.
So,
all right, so how'd you increase the NOI?
well, we added capital improvements, right? You saw the paint, you saw the touches that we've added. We were tactical in our capital improvements. So strategic is, I got to have new roofs or the water's going to go right into my unit. Tactical is, you know what? Our property could use a fire ring. So let's go put one over here and give the residents a place to collect and enjoy themselves in the winter. Our property could use...
fire ring. Is that like a fire pit?
Yeah, fire pit.
Okay, fire ring.
We put it right next to a building so the tenants could be warm too.
Exactly.
No, we didn't. So we made tactical capital improvements that became instrumental in getting recognition. So, hey, it's cool. Landmark is a great place. Oh, and by the way, they've got something that nobody else really has. We increased rents unapologetically. So I know there's a phrase, best product, best price. In my mind, and every time I've seen successful companies, if they have the best product, it's at the highest price, right? And we have the best product. And we look for other sources of revenue. So initially, when we took over, it was a week after Worst Fest, and there had been an assault on the property. And 2 residents got into a fight. Somebody went to the hospital. One resident that sent the other one to the hospital disappeared. We show up, and we're dealing with the chaos. Well, the resident that was assaulted sued the new owners, right, for something that happened under the old owner's watch, and our insurance company paid them. So we said, that's it. During Worst Fest, no drunk people on the property. If you don't live here, you don't park here. We thought, maybe that's not the best approach. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start charging for parking? And we've got charities across the street. They're charging $10. We want them to fill up first. We'll just start out at $20. Well, they came in and they kept coming. Fine, raise it to 30. They kept coming. Then we raised it to $40, and they kept coming. We thought we might break even with the overtime we were going to have to pay our staff. We generated $25,000 in revenue for parking in 10 days. That was the first Worst Fest. Last Worst Fest, $67,000 in revenue.
Parking alone.
Who knew?
Exactly.
Right?
Okay, so right there, who knew? One of the things y'all have to understand is when you buy a property, we have a plan in place. He had a plan, but once you get into it, and I heard a lot on the single family, like some of the things that were asked, it seems like everybody's scared of your toilets, this breaking, your tenant doing this. You have staff, you have insurance, you have everything that's going to happen. You're looking for those things that you don't really understand that's going to happen. You have stuff that happens. I mean, he didn't want drunk people on his property that didn't live there. The people that live there can get drunk on your property, though, right?
Yeah, they can get drunk all they want, but
sure.
we just don't want other drunks there.
And then so he tailored that. They figured out, well, hell, let's just charge for parking when they come. It's just something that happened. You discover your leads as they have the property will find things that they thought, wow, look what we found, and then also found, wow, look what we found, right? So it goes both ways. It's not anything he planned, all this stuff, but the leads are always looking. They're always talking to people. They're always looking to do what? Increase the value of the property. And how do we do that? Increase the NOI. Very good. All right, cool.
So we also had a group show up in 2019, and they said they were a production crew out of Austin. Production crew, what are you producing? Well, we produce movies. Really? Okay. Well, which one are you producing? Well, we do the Fear of the Walking Dead. Okay. Why are you here? Well, we want to scout your building. Long story short, and $65,000 later, they filmed 2 episodes on our property in our basement. And I can't remember which season it is. I think it's season 7. They're driven. I've never seen the series, but I was told by the people filming, everybody's driven underground. They're in Texas in the basement of a hotel. Anybody watch that show? I don't know. Anyway, okay. Well, you tell me if I'm wrong. They're in a basement and they have these growing tables where they're growing food underground, and they're kind of skulking around looking for walkers and doing all this other kind of stuff. And they filmed 2 episodes there and paid us $65,000 for the pleasure of filming in our basement. Again, who knew? And it goes on. I mean, we were saying we discovered, because 2 residents were fighting over where they were parking, and they came into the office to get us to sell. I said, well, we don't have reserved parking. Actually, it was my wife said that. And they said, why not? We said, why not? So $25,000 a year later, we've got reserved parking. That's what you look for. You look for revenue sources that you normally wouldn't see, and you try and promote them. And you try it. You know, whether it's putting granite countertops where you had Formica, because you're tired of resurfacing them every time you get a new tenant in there. And somebody walks in there and says, I love this, how much? So we said, well, it'll cost you, normally it's $1,000 a month, it's going to be $1,400, done. Well, the whole thing cost us $800. So for $800, we get the $800 paid back in 2 months' rent as a bonus. So those are the things that you try. And if it works, you keep doing it and you do more of it. So that's how we increased NOI.
What capital improvements types do you do?
Interiors, so we had Formica countertops. Anytime you're buying an apartment complex, hope that they've got Formica countertops because those are easy to replace with granite. We upgraded hardware, we added new appliances, we replaced cabinet doors. Cabinets, by the way, if they look ratty, it's usually the door. You can pull the door off, put a new door on, and it's a brand new cabinet. Imagine that. Painted them. We're on I think our third version of upgrades at this property. On the exterior, we painted the buildings. You saw that. We added lighting, fountains, a dog park, fire pits, pool, club room, atrium. We enhanced the fitness center, enhanced the spa, added new signage. The list goes on. That's all I could think of at the time.
Spa. I just let y'all know this is a Class A property. We don't normally have spas in what we buy.
We have a locker room with showers in our spa. And you fix what's broken. So we have tile roofs, which are great, except when the wind blows the tile roofs off, and if they don't set the flashing up right. And it took us years to figure out where the problem was. We finally fixed that. Water penetration, we've got a cooling tower. We basically gutted it and redid it. Boilers, we added 2 new ones. Resurfaced the parking lots, added pumps, and replaced the fountains and the ponds. We have ponds, by the way. So we also own 1,100 feet of the Comel River. We own the beds and the banks and not the water. And the power plant is right next to it. They used to pull water from the Comel, but everything in New Braunfels is sitting on an aquifer, right? You just see it bubble up in a few places, but if you dig down, you find water. So to get the water out of the basement, there are huge cisterns down there, and they pump them out. They were going to pump them into the storm sewer. Well, instead, the developer that we bought this from had the bright idea, well, let me create some ponds. So the water that we have to pull out of the basement goes into our own ponds that then drains into the storm sewer. Well, when we were redoing the cooling tower, we kind of got tired of paying for all the water from the city to fill the cooling tower. And we said, you know, we're using the water in the basement for our irrigation. Let's get it tested and see what it's like. And so our water treatment guy that would treat the water before it goes in the tower tested it and said, this is better water than the city gives you. So we hooked a hose up to our sprinkler system that pulls water out of our basement, and now we're paying for the water just with the electricity to pump it out of our basement that runs through our cooling tower. So again, you fix what breaks, and then you take advantage of the situation to try and enhance what you're fixing. Next slide. Yeah, so those are some of the things that we've done. There's that's our cooling tower. He's pulling the fins off. That's our water leaks from the flashing on the roofs. And we re-roofed the loft building. Okay. At takeover, our average rent was $1,290. Now it's $2,013 and rising.
The number one way to raise your NOI, to raise your revenue, is to increase rents. A lot of the auxiliary income that we were talking about is gravy. This is the main way that you increase the value of your property. You go in, you make it nice, or at least up to speed for that market. You get to rents to at least the market, right, where the market rate is, and then hopefully your nicer product, maybe you can push them. And that's how you generate the income, and that's how you basically increase.
So I've got a hack for you, and this works for houses too. Whenever you do your research, all right, I've got this house, and in this market, it'll rent for $1,400. I can see all these houses over here. I can go in there and renovate it, and I can get $1,400. When you renovate that house, isn't it the newest house in the neighborhood? Why are you competing at prices for older homes? Pop it to $1,700 and see who comes. If nobody comes, drop it to $1,650. The key isn't, don't decide what your market rent is. You let the market decide what your rent is. Every property that we've ever bought, we would go in and analyze based on the market, blah, 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 base our price on that. And if it needed to be X, we would do X plus 20% and wait and see if anybody comes. And every single time they came. So whether it's a house, whether it's an apartment complex, when you buy something, go in there, raise rents immediately. How many chances do you get to make a first impression? 10? 1. When your property is renovated, that's the best foot forward you will ever have until you renovate it again, right? You are at the peak. Great paint job, all that kind of stuff. They're going to go, wow, this is great. Well, after they drive by it 10 times, they're going, oh, there's that house again. It ages quickly in the eye of the beholder. You never get a second chance to raise rents than the first day when you open up and start leasing. Okay. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Okay. Never cut rents for occupancy. Never cut rents for occupancy. I see people do that all the time. I had to prove to my staff, because they've been programmed, oh, you got to have 90% occupancy. You got to have 95% occupancy. I say, if we're at 90% occupied, we need to raise our rents. We rarely hit 90% occupancy because we're constantly raising rents. And that means I've got 10% occupancy I can now lease at a higher rate. Which would you rather have? A 100-unit apartment complex leasing for $1,000 a month, or a 100-unit complex, and it's full, or a 100-unit complex with 1 unit leasing for $100,000 a month? Why? Why would you want just 1 unit leasing for $100,000? Because I got 99 others I can also lease for $100,000. If I lease them for $1, I'm still making more than $100,000, right? Always, always push rents. Don't worry about occupancy. The market will keep up.
There's differing opinions on that, but we'll let that slide. He'll go over that this weekend as well.
Works for me.
All right, other income.
Okay, other income. This shows you how you can make other income, right? We're under a $200,000 on takeover. Now we're at $470,000. Where does that come from? Worst Fest parking, movie deals, events, reserved parking,
Very good.
and
Again,
others.
Other stuff. This is kind of the gravy. And again, if you saw his plan at the very beginning, none of this stuff was in there. And we just discovered it. He discovered it along the way, implemented it, and it's like bonus stuff. It's like, boom, there you go. All it's doing is increasing your NOI and increasing the value. Kudos.
Okay, so how's it changed our life? In a lot of ways. You know, we had a lot of institutional knowledge when we got here, but I remember walking in the door. We bought 126 units in Houston, and I think I asked Emery, where can I buy 100 washing machines? I know where to buy one, right? Home Depot, Lowe's, if they got a special or something like that. It's the network, right? That changed us because you don't get that in the real world. The guy that owns this building, actually, I know him, or the one that used to, don't know the new owner. You know that building down the street? Guess how much they share information? Guess how much they talk? He hopes that other guy dies so he can get all his tenants, right? Do me a favor. Look to your left for just a second. Look to your left. Look to your right. These people are the ones that are going to be helping you in addition to the folks that work for Lifestyles. I get as much out of the other guys doing the same thing I'm doing as I do from Lee. And Lee wasn't always a mentor. Lee was a guy helping me find dishwashers. So, okay, so how's it changed
Depot
us?
and Lowe's, right?
There are things we just don't worry about anymore. Click.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did your daughter ever graduate A&M?
She did, and she married a guy that interned with me, got a master's in real estate, and is a managing partner for a build-for-rent subdivision company.
What did you do with the house that you bought up there?
I never bought it.
Oh, you never bought it?
Nah, she went into a sorority house, and I wound up paying infinitely more than I ever wanted to. So these are the things we don't worry about. Retirement, pay raises, being late for work, performance reviews. Those are delightful, aren't they? Promotions, oil prices, recessions. The question is, and this is for you guys, what do you worry about?
What do you not want to worry about?
Why are you here? What next? Short term, keep exceeding our performance targets. We're in ether right now. We never thought we'd be as high as we are. Well, we still have room to go. Find more deals. Long term, stay challenged, stay hungry. We've got a multifamily development project we're doing. Enjoy life with our family and our friends, and give back, which is why I'm here right now. Who's on our team? You know, normally they list a bunch of people. I think pictures speak 1,000 words. Whose symbol is that in the center? That's this organization. None of this happens without this organization. I don't work for them, you know. You guys do what you want. I'm not going to lose any sleep at night if you are or don't become members, do or don't. But the reality is you're never going to find a place like this anywhere else. On the left, the other people I care about are investors. Again, guys, in this deal, raise your hand. These people put their faith and trust in us, and we'll never forget that. And the guys on the right, bottom, this guy, and the other leads that work together to solve problems. We are standing on the backs of a lot of people, and we're prepared for other people to stand on our backs. That's our team.
What year is it? I don't even know.
Lifestyles has been around for
think it's
35
like-
years now.
What is it? 30?
35.
35.
Yeah, it was before we were born, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
All right, how about a round of applause? That's amazing, right? All right. I think we have time for a couple questions. Yes, sir. Oh, wait, do we have to wait? Do we have to
You
wait for
get
the
the
mic?
first one this time, that's right.
Make sure I get my answer.
Okay. I think we have to wait for a mic.
With all the extra events coming in play, parking, parties, weddings, and everything like that, how does that affect your tenants and your renters that live in your apartment?
Yeah, so we've got enough space to have a restaurant or a bar, but because
question-
sound travels,
the
oh, I'm
question-
sorry, how do all the other business activities affect our residents? We've got enough space for bars and restaurants, but we won't do it because sound travels and they don't close until after 10 o'clock. We've looked at doing a wine tasting room in the club room area where the Star is. We haven't pushed that hard. We started to, and then COVID hit, so we're going to pick that ball back up again. But wine tasting venues close at 5 or 6, so it'll be kind of perfect for that environment. Worst Fest creates a problem because we're literally across the street, so you'll get tailgaters, oh, my friend lives here, and unless they have the parking sticker, and that's how we get our parking stickers issued, they don't get past the gate. And if they want to park there, they can, but it's going to cost them, I don't know, however much I can imagine it should cost. And so we manage our property with our primary revenue source, our residents, in mind. Next question.
Okay?
What's your exit plan on the property? And because when you first bought it, you've spent capital expenditures to improve it, but over the time, I was just curious about the exit plan.
Yeah, how do you exit? We've got a position that we've taken on every asset. We don't have the votes. We all vote our units. So if I own 10% of it and somebody else owns 5% of it and somebody owns 20% of it, we vote the amount of ownership we have. And if we get a majority that say they want to sell it, we put it on the market. But generally speaking, I don't recommend a sale until I don't think we're going to see growth in NOI, or there's a danger that we could have a prolonged increase in expenses that could accrete NOI. And that means value drops. So right now, it doesn't make sense to sell because we're finding new ways to generate revenue, okay? But if everybody gets together and says, you know what, let's cash in, we cash in. That's how we handle it. Good question.
So generally, overall, every time a lead buys something, right, and it might be, I think I'll hold it for 3 years. I think I'm gonna hold it for 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is. Once they implement their initial plan, they find some changes. They're always constantly analyzing things. The value of real estate always kind of goes up and to the right? There's little sags here, but always, if you look at the value of something today versus the value of something 10 years, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it is here. We went back and looked at a lot of the properties that we sold, that every one of us have bought and sold, and we're like, if we look at it now, they're coming back around, they're buying at like he said, I mean, he's got enough debt on it at what he currently bought it at. The value is like here. Why would you ever sell anything, right? So it's a plan, but the lead is constantly evaluating, when should I sell? When should I refinance? Is it time to sell? Is it time to refinance? That's kind of an ongoing, and that'll happen even if I'm thinking I'm gonna hold something for 10 years, in year 2, I'm gonna be looking at where it's at and what we can do with that extra capital. So that's a continual thing. All right, another question. We have anything online, David? No? All right. In the house? One more?
We got one here with Renee.
Go repeat the question.
Yeah, just go ahead and ask.
Okay. So for the passives that invested, like if somebody put in 100 grand as a passive, what does that like time horizon look like for them? When did they get, obviously they got small distributions. When did they get their 100K back?
When was the
did they get the
refinance?
140%?
Yeah.
And then after that, they get basically 9,000 a year. For a guy that put in 100K, was it 4 or 5 years until he got his money back? And now he just gets 9 grand a year? Is that how I read those numbers?
Yeah, so for us, our time horizon, we thought on a yield play was usually 5 to 10 years. They received more than all of their money back when we refinanced 2 years ago. And so you've got the luxury of now having the capital that you invested, more than what you invested, available to you to redeploy, and you're still getting a revenue stream off the asset that you still own.
So they were in the deal 7 years before they got their money back?
On this one, they were in the deal 7 years. We've got another one, the one before that, they were in the deal 2 years. One before that, they were in the deal.
Depends on your market, depends on what type of play it is. Again, he'll go over this weekend where it's a value play, a yield play. Typically if you buy a yield play, you're just buying it, I'm gonna get 10% a year. That's what I'm gonna get. So, 100,000, 10% a year, it's gonna take me 10 years to get my money, right? You still own the property and everything. And again, so it's a little bit different if you're yield play, value play. It also depends on the, where we're at as far as the cycle is concerned. Whether he planned on selling it or refinancing, whether he planned in year 3, year 7, year 10, all that kind of changes depending on once you purchase the property and where the market is. So it's constant reassessment. All right, we have any other questions?
But Jerry, on this specific deal, if I invested as a passive 100K, I was made whole 2 years into the deal.
No, the question was if you had invested 100K in this deal, you would have been made whole 2 years ago. No, You would have been made whole on the refi because I think we had about a 60% return cash on cash back to the investors when we refinanced and gave them 80. So, and again, so
I know it's specific to the deal, but I think the question was more in detail of like, how does that affect me if I was gonna invest 100K? What does that look like in this story, in this deal?
in this story, yeah, that's how it looked. So just briefly about investments. If you're looking at the stock market where you've got a very efficient market, you can trade in and out and in and out. And those of you that have lost a lot of sleep being day traders, you know what that's like. Real estate is more of a long-term investment. And the good news is it's an inefficient market because you can't buy and sell instantly, right? That keeps a lot of people out of the play because most of the investment community have been programmed for very rapid transactions, okay? That carries a lot more risk. And for those scientists out there, there's something called the Sharpe's excess return model, and it measures the return you get for the amount of risk you take. Look it up, Sharpe's excess return. And for the last, as long as I've been tracking investments, real estate gives you the highest return for the amount of risk you take. It's not liquid. It's not, you know, the market isn't efficient, but people know how to take advantage of the market and they can generate historically much better returns for the amount of risk they're taking than they would in the stock market.
All right.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much, Jerry. I appreciate it.